second part of our Lapland journey, we explored the port of Honningsvag, the mandatory stop for every cruise ship heading up to North Cape. From there, we made our way to Hammerfest, chased countless waterfalls, spotted herds of wild reindeer, and witnessed some of the most intense northern lights of the entire trip. We stood on the shore of Lake Inari, Finland's third largest lake, and on day 8 we came face to face with 400 kilogram brown bears, closer than we ever thought possible. If you have missed either episode, I will link part 1 and part 2 down below so you can catch up on the full series. And now let's dive into the final chapter of our Lapland adventure, part 3. Our first destination of the day was Riisitunturi National Park. This place is enormous, so enormous in fact that we couldn't even find the main entrance at first. Was it a problem? Definitely not. We stumbled into a stunning forest section with endless trees and scattered lakes, plus wide meadow filled with wild berries of every kind imaginable. Quick fact about this park. Riisitunturi was officially established in 1982 and it is world famous for something called crowned snow low trees. In deep winter, wet snow piles up on the spruces and bends them into these surreal, hunched over figures that looks almost like frozen sculptures. Photographers travel here from all over the planet just to capture that image. It's basically one of the few places on Earth where you will find so-called hanging bogs on the slopes, which makes the whole ecosystem pretty unique. After we finally located the actual main entrance, we picked one trail out of the many of offer, roughly 10 kilometers long. Because we had arrived in late morning, we gave ourselves plenty of time. The trail began inside the dense, mossy forest. After watching several bears in their natural habitat just a day earlier, the thought did cross our minds. Could any be in here too? We didn't see any, but doesn't mean none were around. Some of the trees were wrapped in a type of hanging moss I'd never seen before in my life. The higher we climbed, the colder and rougher the conditions became. Up on the plateau, the forest thinned out and we were rewarded with a sweeping view of the woods and lakes stretching all the way to the horizon. On the way back, we discovered a small lake that, according to the locals, only exists when it has rained for 2 or 3 days straight. Lucky for us, we had no rain that day, even though the clouds looked incredibly threatening. We were on the way to Rovaniemi to meet Santa Claus himself. But along the road we ran into yet another herd of reindeer. A little further on, we stopped on a bridge because a truly picturesque river was flowing beneath it, and the light at that moment was absolutely gorgeous. When we arrived in Rovaniemi, instead of heading straight to Santa, we first booked a Northern Lights photography tour for later that night. According to the review, the team we had chosen are true Aurora professionals. They operate across the entire country, even into Sweden and Norway, with multiple crews working together. Roughly 10 to 20 groups are on the road at any given time, and the moment one of them spots Aurora activity, the information is shared and everyone redirects to the best location. Our tour started at 10 p.m. Despite the forecast that promised clear skies, we had some cloud cover. Still, short after leaving the city, we already saw the first of bands of northern lights. Then, for the next 1.5–2 hours, nothing. Until our driver got word that just across the Swedish border, unusually strong auroras were dancing above the tree line. So we drove. And they were real. Honestly, what blew my mind wasn't just that they were there. We literally didn't have to move for almost 3 hours. The lights were everywhere, no matter which direction we faced. It was fantastic. We didn't expect it, that level of intensity, for that long. Even the rare pink and magenta bands were visible, and the green ones were clearly seen with the naked eye, no camera needed. After every single memory card was completely full, we drove back around in 4 in the morning, and we only made into bed around 6 a.m. What a day! We got up around noon, combined breakfast and lunch into one meal, and then drove over to Santa Claus village. Lucky for us, late September means very few tourists, and you can actually explore the whole village in peace and quiet. Here is something worth knowing. Santa Claus village sits exactly on the Arctic Circle at 66 degrees and 33 minutes north. You can literally straddle the line with one foot in the Arctic and the other foot outside of it. The village also houses Santa's official main post office, which receives more than 500,000 letters every single year from over 109 different countries. Real letters, real kids, real answers. The village itself is a massive complex with a hotel, restaurants, shops and holiday cabins that are fully booked from the very start of winter. You basically need to reserve a year in advance. The staff told us that in winter the queues wrap around every single building and it's completely normal to wait hours before you can see anything. We had none of that, thankfully. Even meeting Santa himself came with no waiting time. There was only one lovely family from northern India in front of us. Then it was our turn and Santa actually threw in a few words of Swiss German. Not bad, Santa. As we found out afterwards, Santa can greet visitors in over 100 languages. That is a skill list I would like to see in a CV. As expected, the village is full of souvenir shops and even in September it felt genuinely Christmassy. There was also a slightly confusing Santa advertisement we walked past, but that one we politely skipped. On day 11, we were still based in Rovaniemi, but we took a day trip out to Ranua Wildlife Park. It is essentially a wildlife park, but a massive one, featuring animals that live across the Arctic, most species you can actually find in Finland. Ranua Zoo holds the title of the northernmost zoo in the world. It opened in 1983 and it is home to around 50 species of Arctic animals, including, for example, polar bears. First up was a small lake. Among other birds, we spotted a whooper swan. These birds have a yellowish bill instead of the orange one you see on swans in the rest of Europe, and they are slightly smaller and significantly aggressive. Quick side note, the whooper swan has been the official national bird of Finland since 1981 and it even appears on the Finnish €1 coin. Shortly after being hissed at by that unfriendly swan, we walk straight to the highlight, the wolves. About a dozen wolves live at Ranua, absolutely stunning animals. And thankfully, they have an enormous area to roam around in. We even got to witness their instinct in action. The pack caught something right in front of us. It was only a raven, but still, it was a rare chance to watch wolves actually secure their own meal. Interestingly enough, plenty of other birds were around, and despite on one of their own just getting snatched, they didn't seem disturbed at all. Maybe those were the adrenaline junkie ravens of the area. Even though Finland has plenty of moose, we had only seen one so far, and just for a few seconds while we were photographing the northern lights. In the wildlife park, we finally had the chance to properly observe them up close. The park as a whole impressed us, except for one clear issue. the enclosures for some of the bird species. The snowy owl had relatively small habitats, as other owl species and birds of prey. It was strange, because the space around them was clearly available. Those enclosures could have easily been 3 or 4 times larger. That is something they should really work on. The next day we left Rovaniemi and continued south. On the way, just like every single day until now, we ran into another herd of reindeer. Not long after, we discovered Auttiköngäs. Auttiköngäs is one of the most famous waterfalls in Oulu, Finnish Lapland. The main drop plunges about 16 meters, with a total descent of roughly 27 meters along the Auttiköngäs river. Back in the 1800s, this spot was part of the major log floating route, where timber harvested from the northern forest was sent downstream to the coastal sawmill. You can actually still see remnants of the historic log chute today. The area is now protected and operated by Metsähallitus, which is Finland's national park service. The location also has an emergency shelter for hikers who get caught in bad weather or need a safe place to wait things out, plus a small open-air museum that tells the history of the region. I would absolutely recommend this stop to anyone driving to the area. After the shorter tour, a much longer one was waiting for us. The Korouoma hike. It is a very well-known trail, and in certain seasons, bears are often spotted along it. We were told that we were too late in the year and would most likely not see any, but we were warned not to approach any caves or cave-like spots. If bears inside and get woken up from hibernation, it tends to be very unhappy about it. Korouoma itself is a proper geological masterpiece. The canyon was formed over 1 billion years ago by a fault in the bedrock, making it one of the oldest canyon systems in all of Europe. In winter, it becomes world famous for more than 12 massive frozen waterfalls that attract ice climbers from around the globe. Like many Finnish hiking areas, the entrance is marked by a simple wooden gate. Right after you pass the gate, you step into a dense forest. The path itself is generally easy to walk, but there are sections where we were very grateful to have a proper hiking boots on. Small streams and mid-sized waterfalls kept appearing between the trees. There is a well-known rock wall along the route that freezes completely in winter, and that also happens to be where the bear caves are located. We of course kept a very respectful distance. The highlight of the trail is a plateau and lookout point, where you can take in the west sea of the forest spreading out below. We had been on our feet for nearly 3 hours, and we still had to book a place to stay. And we found something extremely cool. An entire vacation cabin right next to a lake, with nothing but a forest stretching in every direction. The nearest neighbor was kilometers away. The driving alone was an adventure, because only a narrow forest track leads to the cabin. We rated it as the best day of our entire 2-week trip. Not because it was luxurious, it wasn't, but because of the location and because it was a classic Finnish forest house. The separate little sauna hut was a huge bonus. Between sauna runs, we could cool off directly in the lake. Once it got dark, things got properly creepy. You truly hear nothing but the forest and the water. It was even slightly cloudy that evening, so pitch black. Without the light, you couldn't see a meter in front of you. It was unsettling. I actually had trouble falling asleep because I'm not used to that kind of silence. At home, you always hear something, the fridge humming, cars passing outside, but in that cabin, with the doors closed, we heard absolutely nothing. Nothing at all. Our last day in final overnight stay had arrived, and for that we drove to Oulu. You will not believe what we saw on the way. Reindeer. So, not exactly news at this point, but it felt like a proper farewell reindeer moment. Once we arrived in Oulu, checked into the hotel and realized we still had plenty of time before the evening, so we set off to explore the city on our own. A little context on Oulu. The city was founded back in 1605 by King Charles IX of Sweden when Finland was still part of the Swedish Empire. Today it is the sixth largest city in Finland with around 200,000 residents, and it is known across Scandinavia as a tech capital of Finland. This is also where a huge chunk of Nokia's engineering DNA was originally built, and even today Oulu remains a major hub for wireless research and software development. The typical Finnish architecture is clearly present in Oulu as well. Lots of wood, lots of color. I really love it. We visited the famous market hall, and you definitely not leave that place hungry. The city itself is beautifully green, full of parks, trees, and well-kept plants. Because of Oulu sits directly on the water, it is also has a beach, a really sandy one, featuring a Nallikari lighthouse. The Nallikari area is actually one of the most popular beach destinations in all of Finland. The sand stretches for roughly 700 meters, and the lighthouse, which originally built back in 1939, has become the symbol of the entire bay. In winter, the bay freezes completely solid, and every year a massive snow castle is rebuilt right on the ice. It is one of the iconic winter attractions of the region. On the way back, we also checked out the city hall, before slowly returning to the hotel. After a delicious dinner, we fell asleep very quickly, and the next morning we had to be up early to catch our flight. We experienced an incredible amount in the 14 days of our Lapland journey. Breathtaking nature and wildlife. The trip is also confirmed that I always suspected, that all you really need to plan is the bare minimum, and you can leave the rest to spontaneity. Maybe we didn't visit everything the average tourist would tick off, but we found places that are not even mentioned in most travel books, and yet they are absolutely stunning. It is also confirmed, at least in my opinion, that autumn is the single best season for traveling in Lapland. And Finland in particular, for me, it definitely belongs in my top 5 list of the best countries in the world to travel to. If you don't want to miss any more content, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to get notification about new content. I would genuinely love to know what you think about Lapland. Would you visit? Have you been already? Let's discuss in the comment below. But that is for today. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Peace.